Joining us now, Ronny of Bernstein, covers pharma. Ronny, how are investors looking at the new COVID revenue for these companies from vaccines and treatments and testing? Could it be a long-term recurring revenue story for these stocks, or do they see them peaking?
So for all our sake, I hope this is a bit of a peak, at least in the near term. So it's clear that the level of revenue we are seeing in 2021 and we'll probably see in 2022 will probably not be recurring. A lot of countries have bought both vaccine and therapies for stockpiling, and some of them will have to go away. I think most investors expect us to have kind of like a flu plus market. If you look at the flu market, the vaccines are running between $5 and $7 billion. Therapies like Tamiflu, before they went generics, were just under $5 billion. So if you take those numbers and multiply them by, say, 2, is probably where most investors are. If we look at 2022, that number will probably be exceeded ninefold. We currently project about $86 billion of COVID-related therapies and vaccine revenue in 2022, and there will be a sharp decline from there. What seems to be happening with the investment thesis is that most investors discount that peak of revenue down to cash value and then try to figure out what to put in their models as a sustainable revenue stream for those companies.
So what does that mean for where these stocks go next year?
So those stocks will probably trade very much with the epidemic, to the extent that we have seen the last big wave of the epidemic. That's probably as far as those stocks will go in 22 and 2023 before they're able to convert this technology to long-term revenue in 24 and 25. Typically, when stocks peak in terms of earnings and then come down, the market penalizes them for the near-term decline. On the other hand, if we have another significant peak similar to Omicron somewhere in the middle of next year, I think you'll see this stocks run back up. So essentially, I believe that those stocks will be in a trading range in 2022 and very much dependent on the flow of capital depending on the epidemic.
What would you like to see them do, and what do you expect them to do with the cash windfalls that they've got this past year from vaccines?
Yeah, so Morgana is still a small company. This is a company that had greatness thrust upon them. They were essentially a very small company in terms of span. They now have the valuation of essentially a large pharma company. They have to build for that. They'll have to build the infrastructure, both in terms of the commercial global infrastructure and internally in terms of further R&D programs to become a decent-sized pharma company. They are already working quite hard on next-generation series of vaccination. Flu is the first program coming out. They ran into some problems there. They'll need to fix them. There's a discussion of RSV virus and other viruses that they will target. And beyond that, that therapy, that approach probably has a move towards delivery of proteins into the cells and bloodstreams beyond vaccination and potentially even in cancer therapy. So they're investing very heavily in this and primarily buying complementary technologies that belong into that vaccination / protein delivery or gene editing space. For Pfizer, which is a much bigger company and actually will generate about 3 to 4 times the cash flow than Moderna would, the question becomes really, what else can they buy? So they bought Sirna, and then just a couple of weeks ago, and our expectation is that they'll be essentially scouting the mid-cap range of companies, looking for additional companies to buy. And you've got hundreds of names that they could go off. We don't have a particular name that we're looking for them to make the purchase for. Alnylam was mentioned as potentially being on the market. That's one name that has gotten some play recently, but we don't have a particular strong view on that one way or the other.